Got your ears on this morning, Peacock? We're going back. We gotta go jump in the black hole for something. Something useful and relative for today. As a matter of fact, what do you mean, computer science? Well, let's give the African market on this $300 droid pulling through on a program of why this is still useful at this index, but as far as computer science are going today, this droid's probably still not going to hold up to what's going on out there for some of the basic limits, or if it is, I have no clue in terms of the computer programming ways of the Hello World droid to program this thing.
Content is
just like they wouldn't in the militia or the mask app for the derivative over the derivative here could be 1 over pi, 2 over pi,
to make
whatever.
A donation or
Two
view
slices out of the pie.
from hundreds of MIT courses. MIT OpenCourseWare.
In the pipes, that gives that ball and barrel mass. I have to have those 2 points of mass, otherwise it won't work. And
Good
it
morning.
certainly wouldn't work reciprocally
you.
if I have indexes to
This is
mass that
600,
thing out much
also known
farther
as
than that thickness of the
Introduction to
steel,
Computer Science and
enriching
Programming.
the
My name is
wave
Eric
count
Grimson.
of the
Together with Professor
particle
John Guttag over here.
that is
We're going to be lecturing the course
whatever you're
this
about
term.
to put up here on the board.
I want to give you a heads up. You're getting some serious firepower this term.
Yeehaw.
John was department head for 10 years,
Go
felt
figure,
like a
guy named
century.
John in the room.
And in Course 6, I'm the current department head in Course 6. John's been lecturing for 30 years, roughly.
Computer science.
All
Like I
right,
said, it's
I'm the young guy. I've only been lecturing for 25 years.
Oh, 1,
You can
it's
tell I have
10,
less gray hair than he
11,
does.
12, 13,
Uh,
14
what I'm trying
years
to say to you
in the
is
future.
we take
let's,
this course
let's call it
really
from here.
seriously.
Now, my droid
You do as well.
probably
But we think it's really
on a
important
T10
for the
might not
department
even
to
been
help
a conception
everybody
in Bill
learn
Gates'
about
pants yet,
computation,
and
and
some
that's what this
Z-coin
course
he's
is
carrying
about.
in his pocket. Where'd he go?
What I want to do today is
Just
three
had it a
things.
second. Oh, yeah, here we go.
I'm going to start. Actually, I shouldn't say start. I'm going to do it in the middle. A little bit of administrative. the kinds of
Well,
things
we'll
you
get
need to
back
know
into
about
that.
We're going to run the course.
This,
I want to talk about the goals
and
of
or,
the course.
nor, not,
What it is you'll be able to do.
could mean
at the
anything.
end of
If
this
it
course.
comes to you, that's true and false.
And then I want to begin talking about the concepts and tools of computational thinking, which is what we're primarily going to focus on here. We're going to try and help you learn how to think like a computer scientist, and we're going to begin
Well, I
talking
mean, one
about
thing,
that towards the
the
end of
bits
this
and bytes
lecture.
one, you can't even
and of
dark
course,
web
throughout
this
the rest of the
motherfucker,
lectures
because there's
that carry
only
on.
one of them. And
Right,
if it's
let's start
in
with the
here,
goals.
right now,
And I'm
it
gonna give you
cannot
goals
be
at two
anywhere
levels.
else.
The strategic goals are the following. We want to help prepare freshmen and sophomores who are interested in majoring in course
The
6
wave particle still
to get an
works on
easy
when
entry
it's
into the department,
0
especially
to
for those
1.
students who
You
don't
know,
have
the
a lot of
decay
prior
state on.
programming experience.
Right
If you're
now,
in that
that's solid
category,
true statement.
Don't panic, you're going to get it.
Now,
We're
however,
gonna
if
help you
they're
ramp in, and you'll
reutilizing
certainly
that
be able to start the
topological
Course
model
6 curriculum
or program,
and do just fine
binary
with the finish on
tree
target.
split to the subroot,
We don't expect
or
everybody to be a
subtrees.
Course 6 major, contrary to
The
popular
subtree in
opinion.
itself is a
So
time-space
for those of you
spectrum,
not in that
a
category, the second thing we
cyclotron
want to do is we want to help
of
students who don't
what
plan
could
to
be
major in
broken
Course
off
6
on that
to
line
feel
for trigs.
justifiably
You know, in the
confident
corner
in their
here
ability
for the
to
degree,
write
you're at the
and
point,
read
whatever.
small pieces of code. For all students,
If
what we
it
want to do
is
is we want
in
to
those
give you an
positions
understanding
where I
of the role
understand those
computation
limits
can and
have
cannot
some
play
structural building
tackling
platforms to how you do
problems.
Hello World,
You will come away with a
Hello
sense of
World,
what you can do, what you can't do,
video,
what kinds of things you should
pixel
use to tackle
screens, you know,
complex
why the
problems.
colors and
And finally, we
spectrums
want
to
to
the,
position all
the
students
program
so that
limit
you
in
can
itself
easily,
would
if you
need
like,
to be, can
compete
be done
for
black
things
and
like
white.
your ops,
It can be,
jobs.
but you would want to
Because you'll
cover
have an
some of the
appropriate
basic
level of
program
confidence
limits
and competence in your ability
to
do
the
computational
script
problem solving.
in itself to separate
Those
the
are the strategic
colors,
goals.
the apps, the
Now,
way that thing houses inside that box, because
This
it's all
course is
ZBrush that
primarily
makes
aimed at students who have little
figuring
or no
out world
prior
engines
programming experience.
and
As a consequence, we believe that no
hyperverse
student here is
or
underqualified.
multiverse, and Schrodinger's
course,
wave
you're
function
all
for
MIT students,
sure
you're all qualified
will be
to be
useful
here.
in here
But we also hope that there aren't
because
any
it works
students here who are
hydrogen wave
overqualified
function.
for this
The
course.
electron
What do I
position
mean by that?
of
If
this
you've
thing
done
are
a
both.
lot of prior
It
programming,
is of those
this is
subperiodic
probably
tables
not the
in
best course for you.
M1,
If you're in
M2
that category, I would please
trigonometry
encourage you to
value
talk to John or
shifts
I after
that I could
class
program
about what your
around
goals are,
as the
what
house.
kind of experience
I
you
could
have, and how we
say
might find you
as
course
a
that better
energy thing that
your
could
goals.
bounce around here and make choices of
Second
standard
reason
models.
we
I
don't
could go to
want
the store, I
overqualified
can
students in the class. It sounds a
get
little
these
nasty,
types
but the
of
second
things,
reason
but there's
is
some real limits.
an overqualified
pressure in
student, somebody who
town,
decided on a
the
program for Google for the last 5
Stoichiometric
years.
ratios that apply
is gonna
to
have
the
an easy time with this course,
symbolic
but we don't
nature,
want such a
which goes
student
to what?
accidentally intimidating the rest of you.
Computer AO
We don't want
port,
you to
timing
feel
port,
inadequate
loop,
when you're
whatever
simply
the
in
case
this
may be. that says I've got it
really is a
already
course
designed to
aimed at
do
students with
that,
little
or I
to no
needed to do that.
prior
And in
to
either way, can I find
If
those
you're
things
not
in
in that
such a
category,
way
talk
that the
to John Ryan after
housing
class,
under the
and we'll help you figure out where you might want to go.
phone? You
Okay,
guys gonna
those
do
are
a
the
phone?
top level goals of the course. Let's talk sort of at a more tactical level. What do we want you to know in this course? What do we want you to be able to do by the time you
Here's a
leave this
$300
course?
HP.
So here are the skills
It's got
that we would like you to acquire.
the entirety of all these problems on it in different forms,
The
multiple
first skill
different
we want you to
indexes.
acquire is we want you to
Would
be
come
able
from
to
a
use
hard
the
line
basic
and
tools
base
of
gravities.
computational
These
thinking to write
places
small
pulled
scale
through some of that
programs.
hydrogen wave function
We're gonna
probably
keep
know
coming back to
both,
that
but
idea
can
of what
pull
we
it
call
just to the
computational
value
thinking.
of this field theory. You know, in this form, it has the same intrinsic value
you
as
can
another
write small
MIT
pieces of
teacher
code.
to doctorates on weights
Small
and
is not
plates.
derogatory
And
here,
that's
by
what
the
the
way. It
computer
just says the
algorithm
size of
should
things you're
read
gonna
from
be
out
able to do.
here. It still looks like
Second
45s
skill
and
we
almost
want you to have at
45s,
the
and
end
seeing
of
you
this
don't
course
have
is
any
the
other
ability to use a vocabulary of
ones and
computational
zeros in a
tools
data compressed
in order to
form
be
or
able to
place for
understand
gravity.
programs
If you're
written
going to
by
pull
others.
this over, make
You're
AX
gonna
and
be able to
G
write, you're
first,
gonna be able to read.
new mu, whatever. Get it back to
This latter
XA
skill, by the way,
0110.
is incredibly valuable because you won't want to do everything from scratch yourself.
Now,
You want to
in
be
the
able to
mill,
look
that
at
still
what is
turns
being
into
created
dollar
by
bills
somebody
for
else and
me. That
understand
number
what is
could be
inside of
5
there,
volts.
whether it works correctly and
Is
how you
a
can build on it.
paycheck. Is a value
One
that
of the few
says, yep,
places
the
where
gate
plagiarism
opens,
is
the
an
gate
okay thing.
closes,
It's
the
not bad
spin
to, if
on
you
it
like,
doesn't
learn
get all
from the skills
fuzzy.
of others in order to create something you want to write. Although we'll come back
Mad
to plagiarism
pixies.
as a bad thing later on.
Well, Schrodinger's wave functions,
Third thing we want you
multi-world
to
and
do is to
circumstances,
understand
Bell's
the
equality,
fundamental both capabilities and limitations
twister
of
theory
computation.
for doing
The
what
costs
you do inside of
associated
here. You know,
And that
this is
latter
a
segment
chessboard
sounds
with
funny. You don't
Nobel
think of
board near
computation
the
having
students'
limits, but they
AR
do.
backyard.
There's some
Not a-
things that cannot be
the
computed.
grid
We
work
want you to
plays the
understand where
same.
those
It
limits are.
can be
So you're going to be able to
night
understand
or day or
abilities and
combinations
limits.
of it's fine because it's night out here, or it's fine, it's not fine because it's day out here. You know, the superposition under those
And
ideas
finally, the last tactical skill that you're going to get out
would
of this
need to be
course is you're gonna
registered
have
even
the
though it's
ability
the
to
same
map
backyard. To a
scientific
computer, it's
problems
just going to do some
into a
basketball and a
computational
hoop, even
framework.
if I can figure out the ones and
You're able
zeros.
to
Again,
take
it could be
description of a
prime
problem,
in computer engineering here, Sentinel programming or whatever
map
these
it
guys are
into
calling them.
something computational.
And again, by having colored chalk or utilizing that
If you think
spectrum
about
of
it,
colored tattoos
Boy, it sounds like
instead
grammar
of
school.
describing it.
We're going to teach you to read.
Well,
We're going to teach you to write.
Latin is just congruent over.
teach you to
The story
understand
base
what you
to the
can and cannot
13th
do.
ghost, just go to the
Most
Juggernaut,
importantly,
the
we're going to try and
Jackal,
give you the
the
start of an
Hammer,
ability to
the
take a
Broken
description of a
Prince, the
problem
Broken
from some other
Princess.
domain,
If I have those
figure out
things,
how
it'll
to
give
map
me
it
a
into that
time
domain of
dilation
computation
of
so
the
you can do the
thaumilistic
reading and
natures
writing
of those
you want.
index.
Okay, in a few minutes we're going to start talking then about what
Go,
is
buddy.
computation, how are we going to start building those tools.
The
But
river
that's
here,
what you should take
how
away.
that's
what
going to
you're
flow
gain
when I
out of
do
this course.
values
time
of
you're
shooting that thing on the square
Now, let me
wave
take a
that
sidebar
is
for about
that
5 minutes to
diamond.
talk
You know,
about
if I apply the value in
course
that form,
administration, the administrivia, things
let's say
that
the
we're going
game
to do in
theory is
course, so you
crossing
know
a
what
river
the
for
rules are.
resistance, and I put
Right,
that in the
so
simulator
class is
of the
2 hours
prince
a lecture a week.
comparatively
Obviously,
to
you know
the
where,
princess.
You know when, because you're here. Tuesdays
Now,
and
what
Thursdays
kind
at
of
11.
you could
1
augment
hour
that
recitation a
prime,
week
degree,
on Friday. Talk in a
astricus,
second to how you're going to get
and
set up.
say in the range
9 hours a week
of
outside
AI
of class
cars that I
work.
want for the Generation
Those
Next.
9 hours are going to be
They still have
primarily
that
working on
original
problem
base
sets.
value, but it's
All the
something
problem
different
sets are going
in
to involve
superposition. All
programming
the
in
way
Python.
to
This is the language
something
we're going to be using this term.
totally different.
Now, the
Talk
things you're going
about
to see is the first
Mike.
problem sets are pretty easy.
Talk about
That's
John.
probably wrong, John, right? They're very easy. And we're going to ramp up. By the time we get to the end of the term, you're going to be dealing with some fairly complex things. So one of the things you're going to see is we're going to
Skull
make
Mountain
heavy use
on
of
Skull River
libraries
next to the
or
beaten
code written
witch
by
tree.
others. It'll allow you to
Got a
tackle
big ass broken
interesting
branch
problems
on that
without having
one.
to write from scratch. But it
It was
does
a busy
mean
day that day.
that this skill here.
Kids are not
is
allowed to
really
climb
valuable.
that over the
You'll be able to
river because
read that code
if they're
and
too
understand
far
all
out of
the
town in the
5-year-olds.
simulator, you know, we're not going to find the
Okay.
body.
2 quizzes.
Simple enough. I'll
during the
explain
term.
that to you about why,
Dates have
what
already
happened
been
later
scheduled.
for
John,
ones
I
and
forgot to
zeros
look
and
them up. I think
changing
it's
the
October 2nd,
simulator
November
outside at the town meeting for
4th, it'll be on
program
the
chip
course
limits and
website.
gravity.
My point is, go check
You
the
would need
course
to know those
website.
things. If
By
you
the way,
go
it's
looking
right
at those
there.
things, and this town has none of those. High
If
probability.
you
High
know you have a
Z
conflict
coin.
with one of those quiz dates now, please see John
Dom
or I
coin.
right away. We'll arrange something ahead of time. But if you, the reason I'm saying that is, you know that you're getting married that day, for example, we will excuse you from the quiz to get married. We'll expect you to come right back to do the quiz, by the way, but Boy, tough crowd. All right.
Haircut army.
If you have a conflict, please let us know. Second thing is, if you have an MIT documented
very
special need,
important.
we're taking quizzes. Please see John or I well in advance. at least 2 weeks before the quiz.
You
Again,
know,
we'll arrange for
people
this, but
forget
you need
about
to give us
space
in the
time
morning
and
so
this being the same thing in the first reactor going off
Okay,
and
the
the computer
quizzes are
engineering
open
that
book.
makes this thing nuclear
This
on the
course
range of
is
spectrum.
not about
You're
memory.
right. And
It's
we
not
forget
what
about
you
those
can
things
memorize
as
facts. In fact,
teachers or
I think both
students or
John and I are a little
programmers,
sensitive to
you know,
memory
how
tests
much I'm
given our
putting
age,
in,
right,
what's
John?
the value of the
This is
quote.
not about how you memorize things.
I'll
it's
do
about how you
things
think.
because
So
this
they're
takes
open
me a
book.
few hours. This takes me
Going to test your
brainstorming
ability
it,
to think.
ripping it down, getting it through.
The
It'll
grades
help
for
you
the course will
better
be assigned
determine in a
roughly,
short
and I
time
use the
period than
word roughly because
actually
we
the
reserve the right to move
limitations
these
of that
numbers around
real
a little bit.
universe
But
over
basically,
there while
the
you're
following
programming
percentages.
for it,
55% of your
trying to
grade
help
comes from the problem sets.
X, build the world engine
The
off
other
of that
45
stone
come
mill,
from the quizzes. And I should
build
have
the
said
world
there's two quizzes
engine
in the
off
final exam. I forgot
that
the final
landscaper's
exam
quote
during
for
final third. So
Kelvin,
quiz
scale,
percentages are
theta,
10, 15, and
timelines,
20%.
adjusted systems because they'll help
The other
build
45.
around it.
Okay.
And Mario can get that coin
other
if he's willing to
administrivia.
jump up over it and
Just look
do
through
his
my list
thing.
here.
And in this real world, though, it doesn't
First
always
problem
lead to
set-
Princess
problem set
Peach,
0
nor a
has
fight
already
with
been posted.
Bowser.
This
You
is
know,
a
you jump
really
this
easy one.
and
We
deal with
intended it to be a
Doomslayer,
really easy
Sentinel,
problem set.
Homeworld.
It's basically to get you to load up Python on your machine and make sure you understand how to interact with it. The first problem set will be posted shortly. It's also pretty
You
boring,
know,
somewhat like my
To you,
lectures,
you'll be in
not
there
John's.
programming like a champ,
And that
doing
means
Doomslayer,
we
right?
want you just to get
And
going.
then some
things.
kid
Don't
will
worry,
walk
we're
in
going to
and
make them more
realize,
interesting as we go along.
I kind of sin.
Nonetheless, I want to stress that none of these problem sets are